Methods and approaches of English language teaching are important areas of investigation in ELT and in any foreign language teaching. They are so important that some researchers, new researchers, might consider them as the most prominent area of foreign language teaching. Methods and approaches are closely tied with the history of language teaching. Let's begin with this. If we just have a quick look at the various issues which confront foreign language teaching these days, we would come to know that they are not new. They have been there throughout the history. The contemporary responses to these issues only include the responses which have been generated by the recent studies. We could see that changes in language teaching methods are a result of various needs for proficiency or communication emerged from learners' needs in various parts of the world and who are targeting various foreign languages. Throughout the history of mankind, bilingualism has been a norm rather than an exception. We could see still at the moment we have a huge number of bilinguals in the contemporary world. There are more bilinguals than the monolinguals. Therefore, it is safe to say that teaching or learning a foreign language has been an interesting and important area of investigation throughout the history. English at the moment is world's lingua franca, or we could also say the most widely taught and learned foreign language, but it was not always so. It was Latin before English, who was very popular in various parts of the world. And in the 16th century, we can see that there was more than one languages, for example, French, Latin, and English, who were very popular in the Europe of that time. Though Latin at that time was gradually losing its ground and other languages were replacing it, but still the standard way of learning and teaching Latin was still popular in teaching circles, and the modern languages or the emerging languages were taught based on the patterns developed while teaching Latin or Greek. We could see even the model was used till mid-19th century, and it was only during mid-19th century when people felt the need to communicate more among themselves, especially Europeans, and they started developing or talking about developing new methods which could cater the need for learners' communicative abilities, so that they may develop such abilities through which they could communicate easily in foreign languages which were popular at that time's Europe. Let's now move to history of ELT. English language teaching, as I told already, English is one of the most widely known and learned foreign language in the contemporary world. English language teaching became popular in Europe when Henry V in 15th century proclaimed English as the official language of England. Then during the 16th century, it was the expansion of the British Empire and its maritime power which led other people to grow their interest in learning English. And Europeans, especially French and German, they started learning this language. And during this time, it was Gabriel's treatise to learn to French and English, which became popular, and it may be considered one of the first books regarding English language teaching. Almost in the same period, it was Ballard's two popular books which served the need for ELT learners. Ballard was also a popular teacher and an author of that time. The books he wrote are named as The English Schoolmaster and Familiar Dialogues. Later on, the trend remained in Europe and other parts of the world, And till the 20th century, we could see in the England, English language teaching was centered around or within London city. And all institutions, popular institutions related to English language teaching, like BBC, British Council, they were located in England. During 1960s, there was a huge influx of immigrants to England, and that changed the tendencies and the dynamics of English language teaching within UK, and other centers were created. And then we could see English for immigrants. This later on changed into TESOL, that is teaching English to second language speakers. And then we could see English for special purposes in 70s. And then we could see an association for recognized English language schools in 60s and 70s. And this association actually is important for the reason that it became an important source for the materials related to English language teaching. We are also familiar with English language teaching in post-colonial societies. English spread in all these societies because the British governors wanted to create a creed among natives who could serve them in bureaucracy and in other clerical jobs. And they included English in the education system of these countries as well. We also know that English, though colonialism is practically over in physical terms, but English still remains in these societies deeply rooted. And many of these societies have adopted English as their official or professional language. And this is the major reason that we could see a huge number of English language teachers in these countries who are non-native. They are not native speakers, still teaching English language. And we could safely say that at the moment, the number of non-native English language teachers is greater than native English language teachers. However, these teachers are hardly known outside their countries. They are not popular, and it's still the British and American or other native speakers of English who are popular for their ELT contributions and teaching. And we could also conclude that ELT industry is still dominated by British and American interests.